Hey everyone, Tyler here. Thanks for dropping by. In this video, I want to talk about the Aputure Lightstorm 600C Pro Mark II that I have behind me here. Now, full transparency, Aputure was kind enough to send this out to me to test and evaluate and make some content on. So big thanks to Aputure for just supporting this channel and sending this out to me to review. That said, as with all of my reviews, everything that I talk about is just my own opinion and my own experience using this light. Now, speaking of that experience using this light, I've had it for about a month now, and I've used it on a few shoots, mostly like interview and doc style stuff, which I think the 600C2 really shines in that category, especially for one-man band or really small crews. But that's kind of my experience of using this light out in the real world. And I've also done a comparison to a really non-scientific comparison to my 600D Pro, but I'm sure you're probably wondering, why are you not comparing this to the 600C Pro Mark I? Basically, the Mark II is just brighter. I mean, that's really the benefit of the Mark II, and its COB design is smaller, so it's more optimized for stuff like the F10 Fresnel and the spotlight mount and all that stuff, where the original 600C Pro just had a much bigger COB, so it wasn't optimized for those hard light modifiers. But it uses the same color science and all that, so they actually integrate really well with each other, and you can kind of lean on the strengths of the 600C2 for its extra output for stuff like pushing it through a window, or if you're doing a book light or something like that, you can kind of leverage that higher output and then utilize the other light for accents or whatever the case may be. Now, what's really interesting is that even though the COB is smaller, it actually does have more output, even just as a bare bulb compared to the 600C Mark I. And the way they were able to achieve that, my understanding is they were able to just cram more LED chips in that smaller COB design by using better advanced technology and some wizardry and all that fun stuff that's super technical and sciencey. That Aputure does a way better job of explaining that than I do, but rest assured, it is brighter. And when I saw how much brighter it was, like I think bare bulb, it was like 35% brighter, and like something crazy like 85% brighter with the F10 Fresnel. Don't quote me on that, but go to the website and confirm that. But when I saw that, I was wondering, like, that's a lot brighter. I wonder how that compares to the 600D Pro, because I own the 600D Pro. I absolutely love the 600D Pro. I use it on pretty much every single shoot. I made a video about this sometime late last year about how the 600D Pro is just kind of like my Swiss Army knife light in my kit. And I think I know that the 600C Pro 2 is going to replace that kind of Swiss Army knife light. It's going to replace the 600D Pro for me in a lot of scenarios because of its RGB WW technology, being able to tune the CCT from 2300 to 10,000 Kelvin and adjust the green magenta shift, or even just using stuff like the RGB functions to get really cool colors of light and all that. So it's a super versatile light, but I wanted to verify its output against the 600D Pro, because one of the great things about it is it is super bright. So you can utilize it to like put behind a big softbox and, you know, balance the exposure between the talent and outside of a window or something like that. And if the 600C Pro 2 couldn't manage that, well, then the 600D Pro really still is gonna be probably my main light. So I did some tests to see what the differences were between the two. So this first setup right here is really like how I would want to compare the lights, and that is just like a simple interview setup. So I just did like a test in my living room just to kind of test the output between the 600C Pro 2 and the 600D Pro. And this is both at 5600 Kelvin and at 100%. And the same softbox, just a 5-foot softbox attached with the Bowens mount. So I try to minimize as many variables as possible to try to get as much of an apples to apples comparison. So as you can see, between these two in this sort of setup, there's really not that much of a difference between the 600D Pro and the 600C Pro 2 with regards to output. The 600D Pro is definitely brighter, and you can see the comparisons. And my takeaway from that is it's a pretty negligible difference in a real world setup. Obviously, the little extra output of the 600D Pro could make a difference, especially if you're, if you have, some really bright sunlight, or if there's a white building in the background with the sunlight hitting or something. Then you're gonna have to ND down a little bit more. That little extra output of the 600D Pro might make a difference, but in this test, I don't really see that big of a difference when comparing the two lights. Now, another test I did was with the F10 Fresnel, and I just wanted to test it at full spot and full flood just to see if there was a major difference. And again, I didn't see a huge difference. And even if you look at the waveform, and again, and this is just my opinion, it's a pretty negligible difference, where the only time you would really want to use the 600D Pro is if just you need that little extra output from the F10 Fresnel. But the 600C Pro 2, I think, does a really nice job, and really how I like to use the 600D Pro and now the 600C Pro is to throw some some straw in front of the 600D Pro. Well, that's gonna knock down the output. So like this setup right here, it's just really nice. Like I really love using these COB lights to push light through a window just to add some texture on the back wall. And it's pretty subtle here, but I'm able to change the color temperature, or even get weird and throw different colors through the window. But it's just so much more convenient to be able to change the CCT on the 600C Pro 2 as it would be putting up a gel or something on the 600D Pro. So that was kind of like a very unscientific test, but it was enough for me to have the confidence going into some of these shoots, knowing that I could go for the 600C Pro 2 before going for my 600D Pro. And that just gave me a little bit extra confidence, because I knew that I had just a little bit more way more flexibility in terms of being able to tune the CCT or green magenta shift, or if there were any house lights on that I couldn't adjust, but it's still being bright enough to combat that outside, that outside light, the environmental light outside where there's really harsh sunlight, and not have windows clipping or anything like that. And I've been really happy with the results. I've used it against window light. I've used it again in a room where there was no light, but I was able to just tune it down to 3200 Kelvin to get a different look. And it was just really easy to be able to do that straight from an app, instead of having to gel the light or anything. And using with a softbox, it's really not recommended to put gels in a softbox in front of these 600 watt lights, because that COB does get really warm and can melt the gels. So it's just so much more convenient to have the tunability of the CCT and green magenta shift, as opposed to just the daylight fixture and just daylight only. And the daylight only, I mean, like, although it's a little bit brighter, I wouldn't say it's that much brighter. The only reason that I would maybe recommend the 600D Pro over the 600C Pro 2 is when it comes to cost. That's probably like the only area where the 600D Pro, in my opinion, really wins. Otherwise, I think the 600C Pro 2 wins in pretty much every other category. So let's wrap this up. The 600C Pro 2 is really a fantastic light. And after my comparisons with the 600D Pro, and I love the 600D Pro. That's been like my favorite light. And the 600C Pro 2, I think, for me and my workflow, dethrones the 600D Pro, because I feel like it pretty much does everything that the 600D Pro does, with except for that little bit of output that, to me, I think is negligible. It outshines the 600D Pro in every other aspect, because it's RGBWW, and you have all the benefits of RGBWW. And one thing I forgot to mention, which is huge, is its weather resistance rating. It has an IP54 weather resistance rating, so you can leave it outside while it's raining, or if you have other lights outside, that could be the last light that you go to wrap if it starts to downpour, if you want to do that. But IP54, I mean, that's so cool. And I think those are the things that I think really make it worth the higher investment than the 600D Pro, but the 600D Pro's price point is really attractive, and if you are just starting to build out a kit, the 600D Pro, definitely its price point is definitely very attractive, because a lot of stuff like interviews and stuff, or daylight balance fixtures are totally fine for that. But if you are looking to add another point source light to your kit, then I think the 600C Pro Mark II is worth a serious look because of that RGB WW functionality, the green magenta shift, but also the RGB functionality, and being able to just dial in a bunch of different colors for different creative looks and all that. I've talked about RGB WW lights a ton on this channel, and I will leave some links to those in the description. But that's pretty much it for this video. Speaking of links, I will leave some links down in the description below for you to go check out the 600C Pro 2. Definitely go head over to the Aputure store, and if you are so inclined to use the link down below, which is an affiliate link, doesn't cost you anything extra, but it does help this channel chug along. Well, once again, thank you so much, Aputure, for sending out this light. If you have any questions about this light, I will do my best to answer them if you leave a question down in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one. Peace.